Hello and good afternoon. This is Ryan Oyler, and this is my ethics presentation on John D. Rockefeller. So let's go ahead and get started. John Davison Rockefeller Sr. was an American oil industry business leader and philanthropist, and is considered to be the wealthiest man who has ever lived. As of 1937, Rockefeller's wealth was considered to be equivalent in today's time as $340 billion. This is more than 4 times as much as Bill Gates, who is considered to be today's wealthiest man alive. Born July 8, 1839, in upstate New York, he was shaped by his con man father and religious mother. His family moved several times before eventually settling in Cleveland, Ohio. Rockefeller was the second of 6 children and eldest son born in Richford, New York, to con artist Bill Rockefeller. His father Bill was a sworn foe of conventional morality who had opted for a vagabond existence and who returned to his family very infrequently. Throughout his life, Bill was notorious for shady schemes. Thrifty by nature and necessity, his mother taught her son that willful waste makes woeful want. John did his share of regular household chores and earned extra money raising turkeys, selling potatoes and candy, and eventually lending small sums of money to neighbors. He followed his father's advice to trade dishes for platters and always get the better part of any deal. John's father Bill once bragged, "I cheat my boys every chance I get. I want to make 'em sharp." Despite his father's absence and frequent family moves, young John was a well-behaved and serious boy. His contemporaries described him as reserved, religious, methodical, and discreet. He was also an excellent debater. He was a devout Northern Baptist and supported many church-based institutions. He was a faithful congregant of the Erie Street Baptist Mission Church, where he taught Sunday school and served as a trustee, clerk, and occasional janitor. Rockefeller adhered to total abstinence from alcohol and tobacco throughout his entire life. As a youth, Rockefeller reportedly said that his 2 great ambitions were to make $100,000, equivalent in $3 million today's time, and to live to be 100 years old. In 1864, Rockefeller married Laura Spelman. He later said, "Her judgment was better than mine. Without her keen advice, I would be a poor man." He was famous for buying 1 suit a year, wearing it every day until it was completely unwearable. Rockefeller went into business partnership with his brothers at age 20. He bought them out and went to found Rockefeller and Andrews with his brother William and another shareholder, chemist Samuel Andrews. Instead of drilling for oil, he concentrated on refining and making kerosene. In 1867, Henry Flagler entered the partnership. The Rockefeller, Andrew, and Flagler's company prospered, incorporating local refineries until the foundation of Standard Oil. In 1870, as kerosene and gasoline grew in importance, Rockefeller's wealth soared. Oil was used throughout the country as a light source until the introduction of electricity and as a fuel after the invention of the automobile. Standard Oil dominated the oil industry and was the first great business trust in the United States. Rockefeller revolutionized the petroleum industry, and along with other key contemporary industrialists such as Andrew Carnegie, defied the structure of modern philanthropy. The federal government was subsidizing oil prices, driving the price up from 35 cents a barrel to as high as $13.75. This created an oil drilling rush, with thousands of prospectors attempting to make their fortunes. Most failed, but those who struck oil did not even need to be efficient. They would blow holes in the ground and gather up the oil the best they could, often leading to creeks and rivers flowing with wasted oil in place of water. While other refineries would keep the 60% of oil produced that became kerosene, but dumped the other 40% in rivers and massive sludge piles, Rockefeller remained as thrifty and efficient as ever, using the gasoline to fuel the refinery and sell the rest as lubricating oil, petroleum, and other byproducts. Rockefeller continued buying the least efficient competing refiners, improving the efficiency of his operations, pressing for discounts on oil shipments, undercutting his competition, making secret deals, and buying rivals out. In less than 4 months in 1872, in what was later known as the Cleveland Massacre, Standard Oil bought out 22 of its 26 Cleveland competitors. But this was not intended to eliminate competition entirely. In fact, his partner Pratt said of that accusation, "Competitors we must have. If we absorb them, it surely will bring up another." Instead of wanting to eliminate them, Rockefeller saw him as the industry's savior, an angel of mercy, absorbing the weak and making the industry as a whole stronger, more efficient, and more competitive. To crush his competitors, Rockefeller would create a shortage of the railroad tank cars that transported oil. He'd then buy up all the barrels on the market so his competitors would have no place to store or ship their oil. He bought up all the available chemicals that were necessary to refine oil. Standard Oil was infamous for underselling kerosene to put local competitors out of businesses. similar to how Walmart behaved in the 1990s. He was so secretive and ruthless that people that knew him didn't know what he even sounded like. He walled himself off, and people who did know him recognized that he had no self-doubts. Once he made up his mind that he was going to acquire a refinery, you might as well sell it, because it was going to be part of Standard Oil. In 1879, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania indicted Rockefeller on charges of monopolizing the oil trade, starting an avalanche of similar court proceedings in other states and making a national issue of Standard Oil's business practices. Standard Oil's practices created intense controversy. Their most potent weapons against competitors were underselling, differential pricing, and secret transportation rebates. By 1880, according to the New York World, Standard Oil was the most cruel, imprudent, pitiless, and grasping monopoly that ever fastened upon our country. To critics, Rockefeller replied, "In a business so large as ours, some things are likely to be done which we cannot approve. We correct them as soon as they come to our knowledge. This appears to be a type of passive management by exception, which involves leaving employees alone and waiting until something goes wrong before coming to the rescue." In 1904, publication of The History of Standard Oil Company by Ida Tarbell documented the company's espionage, price wars, heavy-handed marketing tactics, and courtroom evasions. Tarbell stated that she was surprised at its magnitude. "I never had a grudge against their size and wealth, never objected to their corporate form. I agreed that they should combine and grow as big and wealthy as they could, but only by legitimate means. But they had never played fair, and that ruined their greatness for me." Tarbell's father had been driven out of the oil business during the South Improvement Company affair. Though he had long maintained a policy of active silence with the press, he decided to make himself more accessible. He wrote and published his memoirs beginning in 1908. Critics found his writing to be understated and dishonest. Eventually, the Supreme Court of the United States found Standard Oil Company of New Jersey in violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act. They ruled in 1911 that Standard Oil must dismantle because it violated federal antitrust laws. The court ruled that the trust participated in illegal monopoly practices in order to be broken up into 34 new countries. Rockefeller was not just an oil tycoon, but also a great philanthropist. Rockefeller's charitable giving began when his first job as a clerk at age 16, when he gave 6% of his earnings to charity, as recorded in his personal ledger. By the time he was 20, his charity exceeded 10% of his income. As Rockefeller's wealth grew, so did his giving, primarily to educational and public health causes. Rockefeller gave $80 million to the University of Chicago. In 1901, he founded the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research in New York City, which later changed itself to Rockefeller University. In total, Rockefeller donated about $550 million. His foundations pioneered the development of medical research and were instrumental in the eradication of hookworm and yellow fever. Just shy of reaching his second long-term goal that he set out to accomplish as a youth, Rockefeller died of arterial sclerosis on May 23, 1937, just over 2 years short of his 100th birthday. As a leader, Rockefeller treated his top managers as conquering heroes and gave them praise, rest, and comfort. He'd allow executives to have their say, and at the end of the meeting, they'd vote on the right action. He gave compliments and avoided yelling. "Very well kept, very indeed," said Rockefeller to an accountant about his books before pointing out a minor error and leaving. Once a new accountant moved into a room where Rockefeller kept an exercise machine. Not knowing what Rockefeller looked like, the accountant saw him and ordered him to remove it. "All right," said Rockefeller, and he politely took it away. Later, when the embarrassed accountant found out whom he had scolded, he expected to be fired, but Rockefeller never even mentioned it. Almost certainly the most lucrative secret deals done by Rockefeller and his partners were with the railroads. These, in harmony, deals meant those refineries and oil traders not in harmony with Standard Oil would find that railroads would refuse point blank to move their oil, whatever the price. Rockefeller's secret railroad rebates on the transportation of his oil kept his competitors guessing for years. How he managed to persuade the railroads to give him rebates and keep the deals secret is still not clear. Alan Nevins has produced an official biography on the Rockefeller Empire, but not even he cannot help but question its morality. Of a railroad contract signed on October 17, 1877, he says, "The commission was excessive for the services performed. It was ethically indefensible." At judicial hearings, Standard Oil representatives and those in harmony were tight-lipped. They often refused to attend court hearings and regularly disputed its validity. They would give disdainful, condescending replies to the examiners which spoke of a seeming immunity to the rule of law. Their conformity biases and obedience to authority led them to protect Rockefeller and the Standard Oil's personal and government interest. The committee decided that Standard Oil violated social justice in its monopolistic deals with the railroads. Rockefeller was a strict follower of the church and believed that the rules as he saw them. His desire to grow the largest oil business in the world was his major fault in behaving unethically. He was so focused on his goals that he did not see what he was doing to other business owners and families. It was said that when he wanted something, he got it. I feel that incrementalism may have played a part in how he behaved as a business owner. He still maintained strong moral judgment when it came to his family and friends, but his dealings with the railroad company proved that unethical behaviors can emerge from anyone who has a strong enough determination to succeed. He had a great self-serving bias when it came to any business that he ran, and his determination became the onset of any immoral decision-making. However, he was not someone who pointed fingers and placed blame on others for his own actions. It is quite possible that he lost sight of his religious beliefs of treating all people with kindness and consideration, even those of his competitors, due to his closed-off relationship with the world and inability to see the abstract repercussions of his actions. All in all, John Rockefeller made considerable contributions to the world throughout his philanthropic donations and changed the way the oil industry produced its commodities and reused its waste, potentially saving the environment from unimaginable, irreversible destruction. He has been considered a man who built America, and his philanthropic contributions gave hundreds of millions of people hope for their futures. He is an example of how the American dream can be achieved through the determination and hard work. Thank you. This is my presentation over John Rockefeller and his ethical contribution to the world. Good night, and have a lovely year.